Hello everyone, this is Mayuk Mazumdar and I'm back with another exciting session. So let's proceed. In this session, I'm going to introduce you to a very new and very prominent domain in Python, that is Flask. So before I proceed, let me introduce you to some of the key features. To start with, first I would like to say about a web framework. Now, what is a web framework? Web application frameworks, or simply a web framework, represents a collection of libraries and modules that enables a web application developer to write applications without having to bother about low-level details such as protocols, thread management, etc. So, once now you got the idea about web framework, now let me tell you what is a Flask. Flask is a web application framework written in Python. It is developed by Armin Ronacher, who leads an international group of Python enthusiasts named POCO. Flask is based on the Werkzeug WSGI toolkit and Ginger 2 template engine. Both are POCO projects. Now I told you two terms, so let me see what are those. The first one is WSGI. It stands for Web Server Gateway Interface and has been adopted as a standard for Python web application development. WSGI is a specification for universal interface between the web server and the web application. The next term is Werkzeug. It is a WSGI toolkit which implements request, response objects, and other utility functions. This enables building a web framework on top of it. The Flask framework uses Werkzeug as one of its bases. The final term is Ginger 2. Ginger 2 is a popular templating engine for Python. Our web templating system combines a template with a certain data source to render dynamic web pages. Flask is often referred to as a micro framework. It aims to keep the core of an application simple yet extensible. And you will get to see that Flask does not have built-in abstraction layers for database handling, nor does it have a form of validation support. Instead, Flask supports the extensions to add such functionality to the application. Some of the Flask extensions are discussed later in this video. Now, before we proceed, the first topic will be installation. So we would like to install the Python version. So to install Flask, you can simply go to your terminal and you just simply install it using pip or pip3. You just have to do it pip install Flask or pip3 install Flask. I have all of them enabled already, installed already in my current working environment, so that's why I don't have to install it any further. But just using pip install Flask or pip3 install Flask, you can install Flask in your Python 2 or Python 3 environment. Now, a very minimal application to begin with to introduce you to Flask. So over here, let me first uncomment the code and then let me explain you. So you can get to see the code snippet. Now, before proceeding or running or anything showing you, just let me show you how it works or what does the code do. First, we have imported the Flask class. An instance of the class will be our WSGI application. Over here, you get to see that we have imported. Now, next we created an instance of this Flask or instance of this class. So over here, we have created an instance of the class Flask. The first argument is the name of the application's module or package. If you are using a single module, as in our example, you should use the __name __, because depending on if it started as application or imported as a module, the name will be different. Now in this over here, I can also give __main __, but is not the actual important that I need to be using in this situation. This is needed so that Flask knows where to look for templates, static files, and so on. For more information, you can go and look into the Flask documentation. which is easily accessible in the internet. Now, the next is the route function. The route function of the Flask class is a decorator which tells the application which URL should call the associated function. Over here, app.route, and within parentheses it accepts two arguments. One is rule and option. The rule parameter represents the URL binding with the function, and the options is a list of parameters to be forwarded to the underlying rule object. In the above example over here, slash is URL is bounded with the hello world function. When the home page of the web server is opened in the browser, the output of this function will be rendered. Now, finally, to run the application, the run method of this Flask class runs the application on the local development server. Now this app.run accepts various arguments such as host, port, debug, options. All parameters are optional. Now, what are the four parameters? They are host, port, debug, and options. What does this host parameter do? Host parameter is used to define the host name to listen on. Default is the 127.0.0.1, that is the local host. And when we are deploying the function in an external server, we can also set it to 0.0.0.0. The next is the port. By default, Flask application listens on port 5000, but we can run it on any of the free ports available. But you must be careful before running Flask on a port which is already preoccupied or not. If you run application on preoccupied, then it won't start. The next is the debug option. By default it's set to false, but if it sets to true, it provides the debug information. And the fourth is options. This is required to be forwarded to underlying WSGI server. Now the function is given a name which is also used to generate URLs for the particular function and returns the message we want to display in the user's browser. So you can save this code snippet in your application and you can run it, but just don't save it with the name flask.py because this would conflict with the Flask itself. Over here, this application is my application is session8.py, and I can simply run it by python 3 session8.py, or since I'm using this PyCharm application, so I can just simply click on this run button. So when I run, as you get to see that over here serving first application session8, that is my class or my Python script file name, and you can get to see that it's running on this URL. So my task is just to copy paste this URL and click on the browser. So see what my task was defined, that on the slash URL there's this route which is just simply slash. Over here if I get a hit, then the function will return a hello world to the caller function. So over here I have called it using browser and it's returning the hello world. So this is a very basic Flask application and is a web application, as I said in the beginning of the session. So this is how we can use Flask as a web framework. Now I have introduced to quite a few terms, but it's our duty that we should learn everything or we should go on. So now I'll be introducing to all the components that I have said you one by one. Now is the first object that to introduce with is the debug mode. What this debug mode does and all its features. Now to demonstrate the debug mode functionality, what I'll do, I'll just in the main function I'll add some new features, that is app.debug, sorry my mistake, equal to true. Yeah, if I set it and then this app.run, if I run this application, it will be running in the debug mode. But this can also be represented in another feature, as over here I can explicitly define debug equal to true. In both the way, it will run the application in debug mode. I prefer in this shorter mode. So now if I run, you'll get to see that the program is running in debug mode. See over here, debugger is active, and it also gives you a debugger ping. Now a Flask application is started by calling the run method. However, while the application is under development, it should be restarted manually for each change in the code. To avoid this inconvenience, enable debug support. The server will then reload itself if the code changes. It will also provide a useful debugger to track the errors, if any, in the application. The debug mode is enabled by setting the debug property of the application object to true before running or passing the debug parameter to the run method, as I have said. Now I'll show you the functionality and its changes. Now the application is running on this port 5000, so I can show you how you can just simply click on localhost and on 5000. If I hit, then also the same hello world, the output that I have showed you in my web application. Now let me change it to my required output. So I'd like to greet all my average students with this change. Now if I do so, then I should, now if I just save it, when I save it by clicking Ctrl S, you get to see that there is a change that has been detected and the server is starting again. Now if I go to my browser and then hit on localhost 5000 again, see my output changes. I didn't require to stop or restart the application. Now suppose I am changing the output again. That means by this I am just not changing the print statement, but you can symbolize it as you are making some broad changes in your development phase of the application. So when you do so and you just click on Ctrl S or save button, you will get to see that the changes have been detected and the application is running in debug mode. That's why all the changes are getting saved and will reflect as in the browser. So over here with each of the changes, if we run our application in debug mode, then our changes will be highlighted. So now I am stopping the application to proceed further. The next topic we have is Flask Routing. Wow, it's a very important feature. Now before that, let me comment out my application. Yeah, the next we have is my Flask Routing. Modern web frameworks use the routing technique to help a user remember application URLs. It is useful to access the desired page directly without having to navigate from the home page. The route decorator in Flask is used to bind URL to a function. So as you can see that if I use in my code snippet, in my code snippet over here, you get to see that initially I was using the slash as the URL, but right now I've appended /hello to my URL. So what it will do so is that now, as I said, that I am routing to the endpoint now to be /hello. Now if I run this application, I have not run it in any debug mode also. If I run this application, if now initially if I make a request on the port 5000, it was giving me response, but over here you get to see that the requested URL is not found, because over here my URL has changed and my URL now is /hello. Now if I make a request on this /hello endpoint, you will get to see that my hello world will be returned. So this is how routing happens. Over here, at times in many applications, obviously it's one of the main business requirement that you get to define multiple Flask app routes. So when we do so, that means it is feasible only by using this Flask routing feature. Our endpoint, as in maybe insert to DB or create DB or insert to table or maybe update from table or maybe add user, delete user. These are various of the few routes that we generally use while developing an application, and this is feasible using the Flask routing. Here URL/hello rule is bound to the hello world function. As a result, if a user visits localhost http 5000/hello URL, the output of the hello world function will be rendered in the browser. This can also be achieved by using the add URL rule function of an application object is also available to bind a URL with a function, as in the above example. Now over here, the decorator's purpose is also served by the following representation, that's here. So now I'll be commenting on this app.route. I have defined a function. Now I am letting that my app URL rule should be to call the hello world function. Now over here I have used the app.addURL method. Now if I rerun my application and I again make a request to /hello, it should be, I've defined it to be route to be slash. If I do so, if I make a request to localhost 5000, the output is hello world. Over here I've defined my URL to endpoint to be slash. My URL is now slash. So this is how both the two decorators can be used to deploy or to use the routing feature of Flask. I have started my program application. Now I'm proceeding to the next topic in hand, that is the Flask variable rules. It is possible to build a URL dynamically by adding variable paths to the URL parameter. The variable part is marked as variable name. It is passed as a keyword argument to the function with which the rule is associated. In this example over here, the rule parameter of the route decorator is decorator contains the slash name, slash within the braces we have the name variable part attached to the URL /hello. Hence, if we make a request to the localhost localhost /5000/hello/ and I give a variable name, maybe any name that I feel like is entered as the URL in the browser, then that value of the variable will be supplied to my hello name function, and it will in the browser you will get to see that my variable is being returned. So let me show you how it runs. So let me run my application. I have run it in debug mode so that I would like to show you some of the examples. So now, as I said, I'll be making a request to my localhost 5000 and the endpoint is /hello, and after that I'll be sending some value of the variable as an argument. When I do so, say this value, which is the average one, have been sent to the browser and it changes. Now over here I am returning just the value of the variable. So if I give it anything, maybe my name, so over here I'll get to see that this is how I am sending a variable as an URL. So this is how the Flask variable rule works. So this is the various ways in which you can send a value. So what am I showing is that at times it's required that in an application we get to see that there are thousands of users. So for one specific user, when we are operating on a specific user, or when one specific user logs into the system, it is often required that the user ID or the user name plays a key feature in this URL development. So to handle in such scenarios, we can easily use this rule of Flask to make our applications work better or in a better way. The next thing that we have in our hand is the next example. So now in the above script, as you can saw that whatever arguments that I have passed with the URL, that is being printed. Now in addition to the default string variable part rules, can be constructed using the following converters. So over here, so I'll be telling you some of the converters and the description. The first is int, which can accept integer. The second is float, which can accept floating point values. The next is path, which accepts slashes as a directory separator character. Now over here, I will be demonstrating you how this various converters and can be used in this Flask variable rule. For that, I have defined my function as it, where there are two routes. One is /block /int :post id. One is /rev /float, then the rev id. Now, when I run the example, I'll show you how it works. But before that, let me run my example. Now, I'll be running this using, as you can see over here. Now, I'll be running this using this one. So, if I make a request to my /block endpoint and I'm passing the value as 11, which is an integer, and the variable name is post id. So similarly, I was printing the post id to be the post id, and also I can render these float values via the URL, and you'll get to see that when I made a request to my /rev endpoint with a value of 1.1, you will get to see that the float value have been received by my this variable. And when I'm using this variable to do some operation, in this case I'm just returning it to the caller function. So what happens is that it prints out the float statement, float value. Now it can be 1.7. When I do so, it changes. It can be 1.7863. So there's an e in between. Yeah. So it'll get changed to whatever value that I pass from the browser. So this is and I said the business use case maybe to handle applications regarding various users. So in those scenario, we can easily use this. Now, third example in this case will be to explicitly define some of the key features. Now, the usual rule of Flask are based on WSGI routing module. This ensures that the URLs formed are unique and based on precedence laid down by Apache. Consider the following rule definition in this script. Here, both the rules appear similar, but in the second rule, the trailing slash is used. As a result, it becomes a canonical URL. Hence, using /python or /python/, these both returns the same output. However, in the first case, if I make a request to /flask/, then it will return some error. Let's see what it returns. So I'm stopping my application. It has been commented out. Yeah. Now let me run this code snippet over here. So what am I doing? That you can see that in the definition it's /flask, and in this route over here the definition is /python/. So let me make a request to /flask initially. So when I do so, that now when I call this /flask endpoint, what it does, it returns hello flask to the caller function, and see it has returned the same in our case as well. Now if I make a request to the /python endpoint, let me see what it does. It returns hello Python. Now the definition was /python and there was no slash in it. Now there is one more slash in my definition. So if I make a request to /python/, it returns me /hello Python. Now if I return without this /python, means the slash in the end, if I make a call, it also returns me hello Python. Now I will get to see that if I make a request without the slash in the end to hello Flask, it will return me hello Flask. Now, but if I make a n slash in this example and make a request, you will get to see that the URL is not found. In other words, it is sending me a 404 response. I will shortly go into this, what are this response was, but right now let us again see that it has returned me a 404 response. Now why it happens so? As I said, both the rules although appear similar, but in the second rule over here, the python slash over here, now the trailing slash is used. As a result, it becomes a canonical URL. The next topic we have in hand is the Flask URL building. So I believe before I go into that, you are quite familiar with the various Flask variable rules. First we have shown, first I have tried to show you how this URL works and how it can be used to accept a value of a variable, then the various type of values of the variable that it accepts, maybe int, float or a path, and then how this canonical URL works and how the definitions can make a new meaning out of itself. So I have introduced to this view of the stars. Now, as I said, the next topic will be Flask URL building. In my code snippet, you will get to see, before that let me uncomment this section. So in this code snippet, you will get to see that the URL for over here, the URL for this function is very useful for dynamically building a URL for a specific function. The function accepts the name of the function as first argument and one or more keyword arguments, each corresponding to the validation part of the URL. In this code snippet over here, the script has a function username which accepts a value to its argument from the URL. Now over here you'll get to see that it accepts a name as a from the URL. Now here I have defined two functions, hello admin and hello guest, and this hello user, it accepts a username as a variable, which accepts a value to its argument from the URL. Now this user function checks if an argument receives matches an admin or not. Over here it checks that if the name is admin or not. If it matches, then the application is redirected to the hello admin. If it matches, then it is getting using the from Flask input redirect. Using this redirect class, I am redirecting it to the endpoint, to the function hello admin. Now what this hello admin does, it returns the hello admin as an output. Okay, hello admin of the average student. To make things clear, so I defined it that whenever I will be calling this method, whenever this hello admin function is being called, it will return the hello admin of the average student statement, and if not, then it is the call will take place, it will be redirected to the hello guest function over here, and you get to see that the guest accepts the URL slash guest, it accepts name as its as a variable. Over here the function, it receives a name, so I am passing also that value that I am accepting from the URL. I will show you that how it works, then I'll come back and I'll explain to you once again the usability of this. But just before that, let me run my application and I will demo you how this works. Let me to begin with, let me now make this call. I am calling the endpoint slash user slash admin. When I do so and press enter, you'll get to see that I have an output of hello admin of the average one. Now I'll make another call, then I'll compare. Now over here I am making a request to the endpoint user, but I am passing another value, that the average student, not an admin. So when I press this, then I'll get to see the output as hello average student as guest. In this both the case, now let me go back to my script and let me show you or demonstrate you what has happened. In the first case, I have made a request with to the endpoint user, that is over here, and I have passed the value as admin as the value of the variable name. Now I'm checking if the value is admin, then the means then what is done, then I have used the redirect class of Flask, and I am redirecting it to the hello admin function over here, the hello admin function. And when I do so, what it returns hello admin of the average student. Over here I'll get to see the output as hello admin of the average student. So it's working fine. Now the next is that when I make a call to the /user URL as well, and this time I am passing the value as the average student. So when I do so, it checks that whether it's an admin. No. If not, then what am I doing? I'm calling the hello guest function, and I'm sending the value, the average student, as the value of the variable that it accepts. So you'll get to see that the output hello percentage as guest, and percentage is to substitute the variable. So over here you'll get to see that hello, the average student, the value that I have sent as guest. So this is how the Flask URL building works. So this was all about the initial few discussions on Flask. In my later sections, I'll introduce you to the more powerfulness of the more powers of Flask application or a Flask that we have. Thank you. Have a great day.